In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
My wife's upstairs listening to Pitch Perfect 2. So I hope none of that's bleeding through into the audio.
The Abracast. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hey everybody, this is John Towers. I'm John Towers. This is the Abercast. Thank you for tuning in for Wednesday Book Club. We're on the back stretch here of Thus Spake Zarathustra. I think we got maybe four or five more of these episodes. And then we got to get caught up on the lessons of episodes. So, let's just get into this. If you're playing along at home, I would like you to summon your vessel of the art and mix up your favorite weapon of mass distraction. I'm not fasting right now, by the way, so my vessel is locked and loaded. I'm not doing the unleaded this evening, if you know what I mean. And join me in thanking my Patreon and Subscribestar supporters. Thank you guys. Without you, none of this would be possible. Literally. I used support money to buy this book. So thank you guys. So here towards the end of Zarathustra, like I said, I just say it's towards the end. This book is huge. I mean, obviously, if you're listening to these, you know that I bit off a little bit more than I was willing to chew. But here towards the end, it started popping up more and more. The last episode, when we did the basically 3 episodes all in one, that more and more of the eternal recurrence is popping up here towards the end. It's like a fucking roller coaster of it. And the reason I bring it up is because that's actually how we started this little series that we're doing, is I was rewatching True Detective, and there's a bit in there when they're raiding the farm where they're holding these kids, and Matthew McConaughey is talking to one of the bad guys, and he throws him down on the ground, and he goes, "Time is a flat circle." And McConaughey squints at him, and he goes, "What is that, fucking Nietzsche?" And I was like, what is all of that? What does all of that mean? And I come across this idea of eternal recurrence or reoccurrence. And so I'm ecstatic that it's popping up here close to the end. And I'm hoping maybe it'll just keep coming with this. So, yeah. All right. So I said we're going to get right to it. So let's fucking get right to it. The speech we're starting with is called The Voluntary Beggar. When Zarathustra had left the ugliest man, he felt frozen and lonely, for much that was cold and lonely passed through his mind and made his limbs too feel colder. But as he climbed on and on, up and down, now past green pastures, then again over wildly stony places where an impatient brook might once have made its bed, All at once he felt warmer and more cheerful again. What happened to me? He asked himself. Something warm and alive refreshes me. Something that must be near me. Even now I am less alone. Unknown companions and brothers roam about me. Their warm breath touches my soul. That sounds gross. When I'm like, dude, keep your warm breath away from my fucking soul, okay? But when he looked around to find those who had comforted his loneliness, behold, they were cows standing together on their knoll. Their proximity and smell had warmed his heart. These cows, however, seemed to be listening eagerly to a speaker and did not heed him that was approaching. But when Zarathustra had came quite close to them, he heard distinctively that a human voice was speaking in the middle of the herd. And they had eventually all turned their heads towards the speaker. Thereupon Zarathustra jumped up and pushed the animals apart, for he was afraid that somebody had suffered some harm here, which the pity of these cows would scarcely cure. But he was wrong. For, behold, there sat a man on the ground, and he seemed to be urging the animals to have no fear of him. A peaceful man, a sermonizer on the mount, out of whose eyes itself was preaching. "What do you seek here?" shouted Zarathustra, amazed. "What do I seek here?" he replied. "The same thing you are seeking, you disturber of the peace, happiness on earth. But I want to learn that from these cows, for you know, I have already been urging them half the morning, and just now they wanted to tell me, so why did you disturb them? Except we turn back and become as cows, and we shall not enter the kingdom of heaven, for we ought to learn one thing from them, chewing the cud. And verily, what would it profit a man if he gained a whole world and did not learn this one thing, chewing the cud?" He would not get rid of his melancholy, his great melancholy, but today that is called nausea. Who today does not have his heart, mouth, and eyes full of nausea? You too, but behold these cows. Thus spoke the sermonizer on the mount. Then he turned his own eyes towards the Zarathustra, for until then they had dwelt lovingly on these cows, which is weird. But then his eyes changed. "Who is this whom I am talking?" he cried, startled, and jumped up from the ground. "This is the man without nausea. This is Zarathustra himself. The man who overcame the great nausea. This is the eye, this is the mouth, and this is the heart of Zarathustra himself." And as he spoke thus, he kissed the hands of the man to whom he was talking, and his eyes welled over, and he behaved exactly as one to whom a precious gift and treasure falls unexpectedly from the sky. For the cows watched all this with amazement. You do not speak to me, you who are so strange and so lovely," Zarathustra said, and restrained his tender affection. "First speak to me of yourself. Are you not the voluntary beggar who once threw away great riches, who was ashamed of his riches and of the rich, and fled to the poorest to give them his fullness and his heart? But they did not accept him." "But they did not accept me," said the voluntary beggar. "You know it, so I finally went to the animals and to these cows." "There you have learned," Zarathustra interrupted the speaker, "how right giving is harder than right receiving, and that to give presents well is an art, in the ultimate and the most cunning master art of the graciousness. Especially today, answered the voluntary beggar. Today, I mean, when everything base has become rebellious and shy and its own way arrogant, I mean, in the way of the mob. For the hour has come, you know it, for the great, the bad, long, slow revolt of the mob and slaves, and it grows and grows. Now the base are outraged by any charity and any little giving away, and the overrich should beware. Whoever drips today like bulging bottles out of all too narrow necks. Such bottles like to seize today and to break their necks lavishless greed, galled envy, aggravated vengefulness, mob pride. And this that leaped into my face is no longer true, that the poor are blessed, but the kingdom of heaven is among the cows. This makes me think of a couple things. So as we're going through these things, I keep saying like, oh my God, Nietzsche, predicted social justice warriors. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, no, I mean, he might have predicted social justice warriors, but he was predicting Soviet Russia. In Soviet Russia, chair sits on you. And that's what this reminds me of. This reminds me of that last fucking Christian Bale Batman movie where they started hauling all the rich people into court and making them walk across the fucking frozen water and all that stuff. Kind of makes me think of like Atlas Shrugged. Maybe I'll do, when I'm finally done with Zarathustra, maybe I'll do Atlas Shrugged. It's not in the public domain, so I don't know. God, that book is fucking gigantic. I just keep shooting myself in the foot. Back to it. And why is it not among the rich? Asked Zarathustra temptingly, as he warded off the cows which were breathing trustingly on the peaceful man. Why do you tempt me? He replied. You yourself know it better than I. What was it after all that drove me to the poorest, O Zarathustra? Was it not that I was nauseated by our richest men? By the convicts of rich who picked up their advantage out of any rubbish with cold eyes, lewd thoughts, by this rabble that stinks to high heaven, by his gilded false mob whose fathers have been pickpockets or carrion birds or rag pickers, with women obliged lavishly and forgetfully. For none of them is too far from the whore's mob, above the mob below. What do poor and rich matter today? This difference I have forgotten. I fled farther, even farther, till I came to these here cows. Thus spoke the peaceful man, and he himself breathed hard and sweated as he spoke. But that the cows were amazed again. But Zarathustra kept looking into his face, smiling as he spoke so harshly. And silently he shook his head. Do you yourself violence, you sermonizer on the mount? When you use such hard words, your mouth was not formed for such harshness, nor your eyes, nor it seems to me your stomach either. It is offended by all such wrath and hatred and frothing. Your stomach wants gentler things. You are no butcher. You seem much more like a plant and root man to me. Perhaps you gnash grain. Certainly, however, you are averse to the joys of the flesh. And you love honey. This goes back to the honey sacrifice from the last episode. You have unriddled me well, answered the voluntary beggar, his heart relieved. I love honey. I also gnash grain. For I sought what tastes lovely and gives a pure breath. A lot of breath talk here. Also, what takes a long time, a day's and a mouth's work. For gentle idlers and loafers, nobody, to be sure, has achieved more than these cows. They invented for themselves chewing the cud and lying in the sun, and they abstain from all grave thoughts which bloat the heart. Well then, said Zarathustra, you should also see my animals. His favorite pets he's always talking about. My eagle and my serpent. Their like is not to be found on earth today. Behold, there goes the way to my cave. Be its guest tonight, and talk with my animals for the happiness of animals, till I myself return home. For now a cry of distress urgently calls me away from you. You also find new honey in my cave, ice fresh golden comb honey, and eat that. But now, quickly take leave from your cows, who are so strange and so lovely. Although it may be hard for you, they are your warmest friends and teachers. Excepting one whom I love still more, answered the voluntary beggar. You yourself are good and even better than a cow, O Zarathustra. Anyway, away with you, you wicked flatterer, Zarathustra cried with malice. Why do you corrupt me with such praise and honeyed flattery? Away, away from me. And he cried once more and brandished his stick at the affectionate beggar, who ran away quickly. The shadow. But as soon as the voluntary beggar had run away, and Zarathustra was alone again, he heard a new voice behind him shouting, Stop, Zarathustra, wait, it is I, O Zarathustra, I, your shadow. But Zarathustra did not wait, for a sudden annoyance came over him, and the many intruders and obtruders in his mountain. Where has my solitude gone? He said. Verily, it is becoming too much for me. This mountain range is teeming. My kingdom is no longer of this world, and I need new mountains. My shadow calls me. What does my shadow matter? Let him run after me. I shall run away from him. Thus spoke Zarathustra to his heart, and he ran away. And when he who was behind him followed him, so that soon there were three runners, one behind the other, first the voluntary beggar, then Zarathustra, and the third and last was his shadow. It was not long that they ran this way before Zarathustra realized his folly, and with a single shrug he took off all discontent and disgust. Well, he said, have not the most ridiculous things always happened among us old hermits and saints? Verily, my folly has grown tall in the mountains. Now I hear 6 old fools' legs clattering along in a row. And may Zarathustra be afraid of a shadow. Moreover, it seems to me that he has longer legs than I. Thus spoke Zarathustra, laughing with his eyes and entrails. What? He stopped quickly and turned around, and behold, he almost threw his follower and shadow to the ground. So close was the shadow by then, and so weak too. And when Zarathustra exclaimed him with his eyes, he was startled by a sudden ghost, so thin, swarthy, hollow, and outlived did the follower look. Who are you? Zarathustra asked violently. What are you doing here? And why do you call myself my shadow? I do not like you. Forgive me, answered the shadow. It is I. And if you do not like me, well then, O Zarathustra, for that I praise you and your good taste. I am a wanderer who has already walked a great deal, and your heels always on my way, without any goals, so without any home. So I really lack little towards being the eternal Jew, unless it be that I am not eternal and not a Jew. How must I always be on my way, whirled by every wind, restless, driven on O earth, thou hast become too round for me. I have already sat on every surface like weary dust. I have gone to sleep on mirrors and window panes, and everything takes away from me and nothing gives. I become thin. I am almost like a shadow, but after you, O Zarathustra, I flew and blew the longest, and even when I hid from you, I was still your best shadow. Wherever you sat, I sat too. With you, I haunted the remotest, coldest worlds, like a ghost that runs voluntarily over wintry roofs and snow. With you, I strove to penetrate anything that is forbidden, worst, remotest. And if there is anything in me that is a virtue, it is that I had no fear of any forbiddance. With you, I broke whatever my heart revered. I overthrew all boundary stones and images. I pursued the most dangerous wishes. Verily, over every crime I have passed once with you, I unlearned faith in words and values and with great names. And when the devil sheds his skin, does not his name fall off too? For that who is skinned, the devil himself is perhaps skin. There's a little bit of gnosis in there. Nothing is true, all is permitted. Thus I spoke to myself. Into the coldest waters I plunged with head and heart. Alas, how often I have stood here afterwards naked and as a red crab. Alas, has all that is good gone from me, and all shame and all faith in those who are good. Alas, where is the mendacious innocence that I once possessed, in the innocence of the good and their noble lies? Too often, verily, did I follow close in the heels of truth, so she kicked me in the face. Sometimes I thought I was lying, and behold, only then did I hit the truth. Too much has become clear to me now. It is no longer concerns me. Nothing is alive anymore that I love. How should I still love myself, to live as it pleases me, or not to live at all, but is what I want. That is what the saintliest want to do. But alas, how could anything please me anymore? Do I have a goal anymore? A heaven towards which my sail is set? A good wind? Alas, only he who knows where he is sailing also knows which wind is good and the right wind for him. That is left me. Alas, a heart weary and impudent, a restless will flutter wings, a broken backbone try thus to find my home. O Zarathustra, do you know it? I'm trying. This is my trial. It consumes me. Where is my home? I ask and I search, and I have searched for it, but I have not found it. O eternal everywhere, O eternal nowhere, O eternal in vain. Thus spoke the shadow, and Zarathustra's face grew long as he listened, and he says, "You are my shadow." He finally said sadly, "Your danger is no small one. You're free spirit and a wanderer. You've had a bad day. See to it that you do not have a still worse evening. To those who are as restless as you, even a jail will at last seem bliss. Have you ever seen how imprisoned criminals sleep? They sleep calmly, enjoying their new security. Beware lest a narrow faith imprison you in the end. Some harsh and severe illusion, for whatever is narrow and solid seduces and tempts you now. You've lost your goal, alas. How will you digest and jest over this loss? With this, you have also lost your way, you poor roaming enthusiast, you wearying butterfly. Would you have a rest and a home this evening, and then go up to my cave? Up there goes the path to my cave, and now let me quickly run away from you again. Even now, a shadow seems to lie over me, and I want to run. so that this may be bright around me again, for that I shall have to say merrily on my legs for a long time. In the evening, however, there will be dancing in my cave. Thus spake Zarathustra.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content and access to the private Abracast workgroup by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
At noon. And Zarathustra ran, and he did not find anybody anymore. And he was alone and found himself again and again. And he enjoyed and quaffed his solitude and thought of good things for hours. But around the hour of noon, when the sun stood straight over Zarathustra's head, he came to an old crooked and knotty tree that was embraced and hidden from itself by the rich love of a grapevine, and yellow grapes hung from it in abundance, inviting the wanderer. And he felt a desire to quench and a slight thirst and to break off a grape. But even as he was stretching out his arm to do so, he felt a still greater desire for something else, namely to lie down beside the tree at the perfect noon hour and sleep. Zarathustra did this, and as soon as he lay on the ground in the stillness and the secrecy of the many-hued grass, he forgot his slight thirst and he fell asleep. For, as Zarathustra's proverb says, one thing is more necessary than another. Only his eyes remained open, for they did not tire of seeing and praising this tree and the love of the grapevine. Falling asleep, however, Zarathustra spoke thus to his heart. Still, did not the world become perfect just now? What is happening to me? As a delicate wind dances unseen on an inlaid sea. Light, feather light, thus sleep dances on me. My eyes, he does not close my soul. He leaves awake light. He is verily feather light. He persuades me, I know not how. He touches me inwardly with the caressing hands. He conquers me, yes, he conquers me and makes my soul stretch out. How she is becoming long and tired, my strange soul. Did the eve of the seventh day come to her at noon? Has she already roamed happily among good and ripe things too long? She stretches out long and longer. She lies still, my strange soul. Too much is a good. Has she tasted? This golden sadness oppresses her, and she makes a wry mouth, like a ship that has sailed into the stillest cove. Now it leans against the earth, tired of the long voyage and of the uncertain seas. Is not the earth more faithful, the way such a ship lies close to and nestles to the land? Is it enough if a spider spins its thread to it from the land? No stronger ropes are needed now. Like such a tired ship in the stillest cove, I too rest now near the earth, faithful, trusting, waiting, tied to it with the softest of threads. Oh happiness, would you sing? Oh, my soul, you are lying in the grass, but this is the secret solemn hour which no shepherd plays his pipe. Refrain, Hot noon sleeps in the meadow. Do not sing, still the world is perfect. And do not sing, you winged one in the grass. Oh, my soul, do not even whisper. Behold, still, the old noon sleeps, his mouth moves. Is he not just now drinking a drop of happiness and an old brown drop of golden happiness? Golden wine. It slips over him, and happiness laughs. Thus laughs a god still. What happened to me? Listen, did time perhaps fly away? Do I not fall? Did I not fall? Listen to the well of eternity. What is happening to me still? I've been stung, alas, in the heart, in the heart. In the heart. Oh, break, break heart after such happiness, after such a sting. How? Did not the world become perfect just now? Round and ripe. Oh, the golden round ring. Where may it fly? Shall I run after it? Quick, quick still. And here Zarathustra stretched and felt himself that he was asleep. Up, he said to himself, you sleeper, you noon napper, will get up, old legs. It is time and overtime. Many a good stretch of road still lies ahead of you. Now you have slept out. How long? Half an eternity. Well, up with you, my old heart. After such a sleep, how long will it take you to wake it off? But then he fell asleep again, and his soul spoke against him and resisted and laid down again. Leave me alone still. Did not the world become perfect just now? Oh, the golden round ball. Get up, said Zarathustra, you thief. You lazy little thief of time, what still stretching, yawning, sighing, falling into deep wells? Who are you? Oh, my soul. At this point, he was startled, for a sunbeam fell from the sky and onto his face. Oh, heaven over me, he said, sighing. And he sat up. You are looking on, you are listening to my strange soul. And you will drink this drop of dew which has fallen upon all earthly things. When you drink this strange soul, when well of eternity, cheerful, dreadful abyss of noon, when will you drink my soul back into yourself? Thus spoke Zarathustra, and he got up from his resting place at the tree, as from a strange drunkenness, and behold, the sun still stood straight over his head. But this one might justly conclude that Zarathustra had not slept long, or maybe he slept a whole night, like a whole 24 hours. I don't know. The welcome. It was only late in the afternoon that Zarathustra, over much vain searching and roaming, returned to his cave again. So he's been walking away from his cave for like 20 fucking chapters, but in one sentence he returns to his cave. But he was opposite it. Not 20 paces away, that which he now least expected came about, and again he heard the cry of distress. And amazing, this time it came from his own cave. But it was a long, drawn-out, manifold, strange cry. Zarathustra could clearly discern that it was composed of many voices, although if heard from a distance it might sound like a cry from a single mouth. Then Zarathustra leaped forward towards his cave, and behold, what a sight awaited him after this sound. For all the men whom he had passed during the day They were sitting there together, the king at the right and the king at the left, the old magician, the pope, the voluntary beggar, and the shadow, the conscientious in spirit, and the sad soothsayer, and the ass, and the ugliest man had put a crown and adored himself with 2 crimson belts, for like all who are ugly, he loved to disguise himself and pretend that he was beautiful. But in the middle of this melancholy party stood Zarathustra's eagle, bristling and restless, for he had been asked too many questions for which his pride had no answer, and the wise serpent hung around his neck. This is how we seen the eagle and the serpent at the very beginning of the book. Remember, they were flying around. The eagle had the serpent around his neck. This is another version or another instance of the eternal recurrence. Zarathustra beheld all this with great amazement, and he examined every one of his guests with friendly curiosity. He read their souls and was amazed again. Meanwhile, all those gathered has risen from their seats, and they were waiting respectfully for Zarathustra to speak. But Zarathustra spoke thus: "You who despair, you who are strange. So it was your cry of distress that I heard, and now I also know where to find him whom I sought in vain today. The higher man, he sits in my own cave. The higher man, who should I be amazed? Have I not lured him to myself with the honey sacrifices and the cunning siren calls of my happiness? Yet it seems to me that you are poor company. You who utter cries of distress upset each other's hearts, and you sit here together. First, someone must come. Someone to make you laugh again. A good gay clown, a dancer, the wind and the wildcat, some old fool that you, what do you think? Forgive me, you who despair, and I speak to you with such little words, unworthy verily of such guests, but you do not guess what makes me so prankish. It is you yourselves who do it, and the sight of you. Forgive me. For everyone who becomes brave when he observes one who despairs, to encourage one who despairs, for that everyone feels strong enough. Even to me you gave this strength, the good gift, my honored guests, a proper present to ensure hospitality. Well then, do you not be angry if I offer you something of what is mine? This is my realm and my dominion, but whatever is mine shall be yours for this evening and this night. My animals shall serve you. My cave shall be your place of rest. In my home and house nobody shall despair. In my region I protect everybody from his wild animals. And this is the first thing I offer you: security. The second thing, however, is my little finger, and once you have that, by all means take the whole hand. Well, and my heart too. And welcome here, and welcome my guests." Thus spoke Zarathustra, and he laughed from his love and malice. After this welcome, his guests bowed again and were respectfully silent. But the king at the right hand answered him in their name: "From the manor, O Zarathustra, of which you have offered us your hand and welcome, we recognize you as Zarathustra. You humbled yourself before us. You almost wounded our reverence. But who would know, as you do, how the humble himself with such pride that in itself lifts us It is refreshing for our eyes and our hearts merely to see that this one thing we could gladly climb up mountains higher than this one, for we came eager to see. We wanted to behold what makes dim eyes bright, and behold, even now we are done with all our cries of distress, and even now our minds and hearts are opened up and delighted. Little is lacking, and our spirits will become supportive. Nothing more delightful grows on earth, O Zarathustra, than a lofty, strong will. That is the earth's most beautiful plant. The whole landscape is refreshed by one such tree. Whoever grows up high like you, O Zarathustra, I compare to the pine along silent hard alone, of the best and most resilient wood, magnificent, and in the end reaching out with the strong green branches for his own dominion, questioning wind and whether else is at home on the heights with forceful questions, and answering yet more forcibly, a commander triumphant. Oh, who would not climb high mountains to see such plants? Your tree here, O Zarathustra, refreshes even the gloomy ones with failures. Your sight reassures and heals the heart, even the restless, and verily towards your mountain and the tree. And many have learned to ask, who is Zarathustra? And those whose ears you have once dripped your song and your honey, all the hidden and lonesome and the toothsome, have all at once said to their hearts, does Zarathustra still live? Life is no longer worth while, all the same, all is vain, or we must live with Zarathustra. Why does he not come who has so long announced himself? Many ask, has solitude swallowed him up, or are we perhaps supposed to come to him? Now it happens that solitude itself grows weary and breaks like a tomb that breaks and can no longer hold the dead, where everywhere one sees the resurrected. Now the waves are climbing and climbing around your mountain, O Zarathustra, and however high your height may be, many must come up to you, and your bark shall not be stranded much longer. That we who are despairing have now come your cave, and no longer despair, but a sign and a symbol that those better than we are on their way to you. For this is what is on its way to you, the last remnant of God among men, that is, all men of great longing, of great nausea, of great disgust, who do not want to live unless they learn to hope again. Unless they learn from you, O Zarathustra, the great hope. Thus spoke the king at the right, and he seized Zarathustra's hand to kiss it. But Zarathustra resisted his veneration, and he stepped back, startled, silent, and as if he were suddenly fleeing to a remote distance. But after a while, he was back with his guests again, and looking at them with bright, examining eyes, he said, my guests, you are higher men. Let me speak to you in plain and clear German. It is not for you that I waited in these mountains. Plain and clear German? Good God! The king at the left at this point is in a side. One can see that he does not know our dear Germans, this wise man from the east. But that he means is coarse German. Well, these days, that is not the worst of tastes. It feels like it's some kind of modern or contemporary. That seems to me like it's some kind of contemporary cultural comment that I am not qualified to dive into. It's just weird. You may indeed all be higher men, continued Zarathustra, but for me, you are not high and strong enough for me. That means, for inexorable in me that is silent but will not always remain silent. If you do belong to me, it is not as my right arm, for whoever stands on a stick with weak legs himself, as you do, wants consideration above all. Whether he knows it or hides it from himself, to my arms and my legs, however, I show no consideration. I show my warriors no consideration. How then could you be fit for my war? With you, I should spoil my every victory, and some among you would collapse as soon as they heard the loud roll of my drums. Nor are you beautiful and well-born enough for me. I need clean, smooth mirrors for my doctrines. On your surface, even my own image is distorted. Many a burden, many a reminiscence past your shoulders. Many a wicked dwarf crouches on your nooks. There is hidden a mob in you. Ad nauseum, we've been talking about mob and democracy, socialism, SJWs. And even though you may be in high and of a higher kind, much in you is crooked and misshapen. There is no smith in the world who could hammer you right and straight for me. You are mere bridges. Many men higher than you stride over you. You signify steps, therefore do not be angry with him who climbs over you to his height. Wow, I want to highlight that. Hold on. Sorry, I need that for something else. A genuine sun and perfect air may let you grow from your seed, even for me. But that is distant. You yourselves are not those whom my heritage and my name belongs. It is not for you that I wait in these mountains. It is not with you that I am to go down for the last time. Only as signs have you come to me, though those higher than you are even now on their way to me. Not the men of great longing, of great nausea, of great disgust, that which you have called the remnant of God. No, no. 3 times no. It is for others that I wait here in these mountains, and I will not lift my feet from here without them. It is for those who are higher and stronger and more triumphant and more cheerful, such as are built perpendicular in body and soul. Laughing lions must come. O strange guests, have you not yet heard anything of my children? They are on their way to me. Speak to me of my gardens and my blessed isles, that my new beauty. Why do you not speak to me of that? This present I beseech from your love, of your speak to me of my children. For this I am rich, for this I grew poor, that I do not give, that I would not give to have one thing. These children, this living plantation, these life trees of my will and my highest hopes. And thus spoke Zarathustra, and suddenly he stopped in his speech, for a longing overcame him, and he closed his eyes and his mouth, and with his heart he moved. And all his guests too fell silent and stood still in dismay. Only the old soothsayer made signs and gestures with his hands. I'm John, and this has been the Ambercast. Please consider backing us on Patreon or Subscribestar. We got a lot of great stuff going on over there. Sign up to the mailing list.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.